A very good evening to Miss Sugan. First of all, I would like to thank to Miss Sugan for giving us the opportunity to learn more about general linguistics. Moving on to the presentation part, I would like to cover the morphology part. For in the morphology, there are some subtopics that we need to cover. First subtopic is coinage. Coinage is an invention of totally new terms. Most of the typical sources come from brand names or product names. From the article, what we get as a coinage is priority mail. Priority mail is an envelope brand name which we could find in the article. Second subtopic is borrowing. Borrowing is taking over words from other language. So for borrowing, that what we get is spaghetti bolognese from the article. Spaghetti bolognese is an Italian word, so it is refers to borrowing. Moving on to the third subtopic, which is compounding. Compounding word is a joining two separate words into one. So from the article, what we get to know as a compounding word is caregiving. The caregiving is two different separate words which they have combined it to form a compound word. Moving on to the fourth subtopic, which is blending. Blending is a usage of two or more separate forms of words which can produce a single new term. From the article, what we get to know is there is a word brunch. So breakfast plus lunch is equal to brunch. It is a blending word. Moving on to the fifth subtopic, which is clipping. Clipping is reduction of word to a shorter version. So from the article, what we get to know is there is a word chemo. Chemo is equals to chemotherapy. So it is known as a clipping word. Moving on to the next subtopic, which is back formation. Back formation is a word type that is reduced to another word type. So for example, what we get to know from the article is editorship. The back formation word in the editorship is edit. Moving on to the next subtopic, which is conversion. Conversion is change of function of a word noun to verb. In the article, what we get is there is a word to register. To is a noun and register is a verb. So we put it as an example for the conversion. Moving on to the next subtopic, which is acronyms. Acronym is form of the initial letter of a set of words. From the article, what we get is there is a word CPR. It is a form of word which they shorten it up into a small version of word, which is CPR. Moving on to the next part, which is morphological description. There are few elements in morphological description. In order to explain about the elements, we choose a sentence from the article. So what are the elements which we has included in the statement is functional morphem, inflectional morphems, lexical morphems and derivational morphems. We choose a letter in a sentence in order to explain the morphems. We have put some indications and list down the morphems into a table. For example, the sentence is what's that you say. So the word what is derivational morphem. The apostrophe s is equal to inflectional morphem. That is considered as functional morphem, and you also is considered as functional morphem. Say is considered as lexical morphem.
Moving on with syntax. In syntax, the first one was surface structure and deep structure. So surface structure means sentence 1 is active and the deep sentence 2 is passive. So for example, a man was example 1, which was inside. I spotted a man chatting with his friend, which we changed it to a passive sentence, which was a man was spotted chatting with his friend. So can you see we changed from active to passive? And for the next one, we have structural ambiguity, which means something that can mean both ways, which means I sat in the living room with my dog reading a newspaper. So I sat in the living room with my dog, or my dog was reading the newspaper. That was the example given in our notes. But the example that I gave was, Michael was my beautiful white horse. So was Michael the beautiful white horse, was there already a beautiful white horse? Another example is that evening I put 600 in $20 bills. So can you see the structural ambiguity there, the 600 in $20 bills? Okay, and then moving to the next one, which is also the last one, which is the tree diagram. A tree diagram is basically labeled according to the symbols used in the syntactic description. which comes in a tree diagram form, which is already explained in the notes. So we have few types, like they have the explanations, which is like S for sentence, PN for proper noun, art for article, NP for noun phrase, and so on. So that's all for syntax.
Moving on to the next topic, which is semantics, there are some subtopics which we would like to cover in semantics as well. First, we can see is conceptual and associative meaning. Conceptual is literal use of word, and associative is stylistic meaning of a word. From the article, what we get to know is there is a word illness. Conceptual meaning is illness, and associative meaning is the cancer they have mentioned in the article. Moving on to the next subtopic, which is semantic features. Semantic features help us to understand about the nature of language. To explain more about the semantic features, we have added one sample and then give some nature language, which is living thing, non-living thing, humans and animals, and we identify as a semantic feature. Moving on to the next subtopic, which is semantic role. Semantic role is agent, theme, instrument. Agent is the entity that performs the action. Theme is the entity that involved in the affected by the action. Instrument is the entity that agent uses to perform an action. So we have included a table in the report to explain more about the example in the article. Moving on to the lexical relations. Relationship of word, particularly nouns, is known as a lexical relations. From the article, what lexical relations that we get is pain. Pain is equals to H. These are the example which we would like to cover, which is crowded. Crowded is equals to packed. This is the second example. Moving on to the third subtopic, which is antonymy. Antonymy is a gradable, which is antonyms that you can use as a comparative. For example, big equals to bigger. As for the synonyms, it is the meanings of word, which is broad, it is equals to wide. These are the example which we get in the article. Moving on to the next subtopic, which is hyponymy. Hyponymy is words can have an hierarchical relationship, which there are some example which we included in the report from the article. From the article, there are some animal names. Animals is the hyponymy. Under the animals, there are some animals name which we have listed, which is horse and the dog. And moving on to the next subtopic, which is prototypes. Prototypes is words that has good examples, like when a person mentioned bird, you would say pigeon, or not a flamingo. Or when a furniture is mentioned, you can say it as chair or cupboard, something like that. From the article, we get to know is there is some words of clothes. So from the article, we get some clothes name, which is shirt, pants, skirts. Moving on to the next subtopic, which is homonyms. Homonyms is a word that spells the same and sounds the same but different meaning. From the article, what example we have included is bat. Bat is known as an animal, and then it also known as a baseball bat, cricket bat, something like that. These are the example which we get from the article. Moving on to the next subtopics, which is homophones. Homophones is the word that sounds the same but spells differently. The example that we have included in the article is that example we could found in the article is bought and bought. Bought is one bought is buying, another bought is boarding. A boarding is a place. Moving on to the next subtopic, which is polysemy. Polysemy words is that spells and sounds the same but has more than two meanings. For example, what we have included in the report is run. Run is, we can mention, is What we get to know from run: a person can run, a water can run, color can run. So these are the example which we have included in the report. Going on to the next subtopic, which is metonymy. Metonymy is a relation of two words based on a close connection of everyday experience. What we get from the article is there is a word party. When someone mention but party, what we get to know is cake and confetti. That is one metonymy that we found in the article. Moving on to the next subtopic, which is collocation. Collocation is frequently occurring together. Collocation usually occurs together. What example which we included in the report from the article is white, black, white. It occurs frequently. Moving on to the next topic.
Starting with pragmatics. For pragmatics, it's the study of intended speaker meaning, study of what the speaker or writer intends to convey. So the first one, we have invisible meaning. Invisible meaning practically means how we recognize what is meant even when it is not actually said. For example, the example we had given is if he had the version of cancer that would kill him quickly, so be it, he said. So the word quickly, which means he need to know what he must do and as fast as he can. So that is the first example. So moving on to context. Context means the linguistic context. Example as in bank. So the homonym is known for the sentence on which the bank is intended. It is spelled outside the bank. For example, the example we given is hospital. So you see, for example, a Fatima Hospital. Or you see outside the post office, it's written post office, like that. So moving on to the third one, which is dexis. For dexis, we have a couple of different types of dexis, which is person, place, time. So for person dexis, you have the me, you, him, then, and the example we have given is you. For the place dexis, it's the here, there, yonder, and so on. So we've given examples like there, here, and so on. And for the time dexis, now, then, tonight, last week. So we have given the examples of now, last 2 years, every night, and so on. So for the reference and inference, the reference means which an act where a speaker uses language to enable a listener to identify something. It goes to the reader and writer as well. So an act where speaker uses language to enable a listen. So for example, when you say Lolita, it refers to her. And for the inference part, any additional information used by the listener to connect what is said, what must be meant. So when you talk, for the example we've given is his body. When you're talking about his body, you use it to refer to his body. So that is for reference and inference. And for anaphora and antecedent, we have anaphora and antecedent is, can I use your book? Sure, it's on the table. So you're referring to the book. So the examples we have given is the his. When you're talking, for the example, we are talking about Michael and we are referring to him as his. So that is the anaphora and antecedent.
Moving on to the next subtopics in pragmatics is presupposition. Presupposition is an assumption of what speaker speaks is true. From the article, the presupposition sentence is, if you have a stroke or get the lung cancer, the speaker assumes that person is having a stroke or having a lung cancer. It is a presupposition word. Moving on to the next part, which is speech acts. There are some elements we have included in speech acts, which is sentence, forms, and functions. We divided into 3 in order to explain about the speech acts. For example, we have choose a sentence and we have identified the form and the function of the sentence in order to explain more about the speech acts. Moving on to the next part, which is direct speech art. Direct speech art is asking a person directly. For example, a question. What we get from the article is, did I do it all wrong? This is one of the example for the direct speech art. Moving on to the second indication, which is indirect speech art. Indirect speech art is asking a person indirectly a question. From the article, there is an indirect question, which is I don't know. what to tell you. This is an indirect speech act. Moving on to the next part, which is politeness. Politeness is face is your public self-image, showing awareness of another person's face. For example, what we get from the article is smiling. Smiling is a showing a politeness towards someone. So this is one example for the politeness. Moving on to the next subtopic, which is face threatening act. Face threatening act is using a speech to act in order to someone to do something or to say something. For the example we get from the article is the person mentioned shut up. Shut up is a face threatening act. Moving on to the next subtopic, which is face saving act. Face saving act is reduces the assumption of social power, saying something that lessens the possibility of threat. It is more less than a threatening, but in a polite way, which we can get from the article is you can try to never ever let go to bed angry. This is less than a threatening and more than a polite. This is an face saving act that we get from the article for pragmatics.
So talking about discourse analysis, first we have quality. Quality is when the speaker tells the truth or provable by adequate evidence. So when the speaker talks about something, like for example, he said after he died, I found his notepads inscribed with dates, and every single time he took a pill. So he gave that sentence there, and he also gave explanation beyond it, the proof. And the second one is quantity. Speaker is as informative as required. So when you explain something, you give the explanation at the back, that is quantity. And for the third one, you have relation. Respond is relevant to the topic of discussion. So for example, he hadn't been able to urinate all day, so he was fitted with a catheter, which was emasculated. Okay, so all that is related to its relation. And for the fourth one, we have manner, which is something that is direct or straightforward. So for example, I said, if you can't get up and you fall down, what will I do? I'm not big enough to pick you up. It's straightforward. And for the background knowledge part, we have schema and script. Schema is when when someone tells about a place or something that you already know. For example, couples, what do you know about couples? So the example I gave there is one of you is going to die first or live first. It's related to the couple's life. So for script, we have dynamic schema where a series of conventional actions take place. For example, I put the first example was Michael's last 2 years was speeding up of his slowness. At 68, he began to have the characteristic of an old man's trouble of not being like a racehorse, and was something that a schema of actions that you already know. So that's all for discourse analysis.